You sent me 6 schools in no order, but I ordered them how I want. Let's start with Michigan, right? Defending national champions, sitting number 41 overall right now in the rankings. They got a big recruiting weekend coming up. I was talking with someone in Ann Arbor this morning. They are fired up. List is led off by 5-star wide receiver Derek Meadows. You also got Keona Winston, top 247 safety out of the D.C. area. He's going to visit. What do we need to know about Michigan? Are they going to start piecing this class together? Is this the taking it out of the garage, putting it in drive?
It's going to be a big few weeks for Michigan, and the staff knows it. They're ready for it. They're ready to lay out the red carpet. I'm excited to see what Sherrone Moore and his staff does over the next few weeks. But Derek Meadows, that's the headliner. I know you're kind of high on Derek Meadows as a 5-star, newly minted 5-star for 24/7 Sports. But Michigan's battling Notre Dame, LSU, Georgia, Alabama. Right now, I'd probably give the edge to Notre Dame and Alabama. But this is an opportunity for Michigan. There's a lot of Midwest ties. There's a great opportunity for the Wolverines to make a charge here. Added top 100 defensive lineman DJ Sanders to the list this morning over at our Michigan 24/7 Sports site. Michigan's very much in play with Texas and Texas A&M. You already mentioned top 100 safety Kainoa Winston, who's going to be considering Michigan, North Carolina, Oregon, and Penn State down the stretch. Some heavy hitters obviously in play there. Douglas Utu, a top 150 offensive lineman from Bishop Gorman, Michigan, Washington, UCLA, Tennessee, Oregon, all in play. I think Ohio State's also in the mix. So, and then the last one I want to mention, another big official visitor this weekend, Marco Jones, top 150 edge from the West Coast, Michigan, Texas, Texas A&M. There's a long list. I mean, I think he still even has officially like a top 10. So he's fairly wide open. I'm sure behind the scenes, he's got it trimmed down, but big opportunity to get the guys joining Nathaniel Marshall and the rest of the guys currently committed to play in Ann Arbor. So big weekend for the Michigan staff.
Tom, I know we didn't have this on the rundown, but I just want to fire this take in here. Carter Smith, Michigan's quarterback commit. I know he's not a kid that's in the Elite 11 finals. He's got a high 3-star 89 grade from us. I think he's quarterback 20, defending Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Florida. I love this kid. I love the fit for Michigan. Talking with someone in that building, they see him exactly how I see him. He's a scrappy, dual threat quarterback. This past Friday in his spring jamboree, 7 rushing touchdowns. I think he's Max Duggan. That is my player comp for him. It sticks. And you think about Michigan, how they've recruited that quarterback position. Yes, they got Jaden Davis, who is there. I love how they're following him up with Carter Smith. I think he's the only guy they're going to go after. But he is someone that's going to come in and embody kind of that program, right? You know, just gritty, get the job done. Carter Smith. I want to give a shout out to him for that performance against Miami Columbus, defending state champ, and Sarasota Riverview for Bishop Barreau over the weekend. So like I said, 7 rushing touchdowns. I mean, I don't know if we have another quarterback that's done it in the class. That was Michigan. Let's move to Washington, another college football playoff team from last season, sitting 59 in the rankings. Remember, Jed Fish comes over from Arizona. It's taken them a while to find their footing. They, too, are dialing it up when it comes to a big visitors weekend. A lot of West Coast flavor as well.
I like what they're doing this weekend. Madden Faremo is a big-time prospect, one of the truly elite linebackers, and Washington believes that they are quietly more in this race than a lot of people are giving them credit for. I'm watching Notre Dame, Ohio State, and USC. Texas is also in play. He's going to take a bunch of official visits and then make a decision after that. But Washington sees themselves as a legit contender there. Top 100 cornerback Dijon Lee is going to be a huge priority for the Washington staff this weekend. Georgia, Bama, Texas A&M also in play. That would be huge for Washington to make a move there. You got Phillip Bell, top 247 wide receiver, considering Washington, USC, Ohio State, and a few others. And then you got Dylan Robinson, a guy that I really like, a 4-star athlete, two-way guy. Some like him at receiver, some like him in the defensive backfield. And Washington's very much in play. Notre Dame, UCLA, Utah also under consideration. And then lastly, to really wrap it up with the 4-star visitors, you got top 150 tight end Caleb Edwards, who's looking at Washington, Bama, Auburn, Oregon, and a few others. So a lot of headliners, a lot of big-time prospects that Jed Fish and his staff are going to be all over this weekend. And May 31st, we could look back. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I could see ending up at Washington on this list. And this weekend's going to be huge for them and over the next few weeks.
Kind of jump in 2 comments right here. Jake Wade says Michigan isn't getting any of those kids be real. Hey, not my space. I think there's some confidence in Keona Winston. Is that how you say it? Or Keona Winston?
I think it's Kainoa.
Kainoa. And I think he fits what Michigan wants to do in the secondary. Second thing, Moose. Carter Smith is higher than a 3-star. Moose, I'm going to say this, man. At 24/7 Sports, we have 17 quarterbacks in the top 247, right? So we have 17. There's some other services out there that have 35 with a 4-star designation, right? We're selective. We take our time with those quarterbacks. We want to see how the senior seasons play out, not trying to race and name every quarterback a 4-star prospect. So, 17 against 34 or 35 quarterbacks out there. We're going to be a little bit more conservative when it comes to the quarterback rankings.
Real quick on Winston. I mean, the reason I feel like Michigan, I think you agree, what you're hearing, Michigan making a move is because early on it was like North Carolina or Penn State. What's he going to do? It's going to be one or the other. This Michigan staff, the new Michigan staff, has really cemented themselves as a player. So they're climbing. They have a shot with Winston, and don't be surprised if they are trending up in the right direction after this weekend.
All right, Tom, back to Washington. You didn't bring him up on the visitors list, but Raiden Vines-Bright, kid out of Arizona, now at IMG Academy, high 3-star wide receiver. That was a big win for that Washington staff. Obviously, they had some ties from them to him from when they were down in Arizona. I know schools aren't chipping or still chipping away at him. Is any read on him? Is he locked in here with Washington?
I think he's locked in. I haven't touched base with him for a few weeks because that was my guy, and communicating consistently for months. So once he committed, I decided to let him get a break and not, push too hard to double check on information, but no reason not to think he's on board. Mom's on board. Everybody very, very excited about Washington in the future there under Jedd Fisch. So I think he's locked in, but no question, especially him being at IMG. I mean, schools are going to be there constantly in and out of that building. He's going to get plenty of opportunities to go anywhere he wants, but I always felt he was more of a West Coast kid. I think he's going to stay out there. So Washington's got their foot there in the door. They're going to be tough to beat. Dejoun
Lee, guy, blue star prospect for me. Washington, that one jumps out. And then Chris Lawson, wide receiver out of the San Francisco area, buzzed him last week. I think, he's a guy that has a chance to move up into the rankings for us. Obviously, if you're Washington, it's easy to sell what they have done at the wide receiver position. Obviously, some new faces and new places, but you can go to Washington and be selected very high on in the NFL draft. And then finally, Dimitri Manning, also local kid that's going to visit there this weekend. So that's Washington for you. Let's get back to the SEC, right? The Blue Bloods. Georgia. Big weekend coming up for them. Right now, sitting number 13 in the rankings, 9 prospects committed. I think they're going to bring in, 18 official visitors this weekend? It's something crazy like that. Multiple USC commits, multiple 5-star prospects. Tom, who are they getting out of this group?
Man, just to touch on what you said at the start, I got a peek at the next couple of weeks of guys heading to Athens. I was blown away. It doesn't really surprise me, but just looking at this weekend alone, wouldn't shock me if Justice Terry, 5-star defensive lineman, ends up flipping from USC to Georgia. I know the USC fans already hate me, so go ahead and just, keep that thing going. But it is what it is, man. 5-star edge, Isaiah Gibson, also committed to USC. Wouldn't shock me if he eventually ends at Georgia. And I'm not saying this weekend. I think they all have plenty of visits to take, and they're taking their time, and they're really in no hurry to do anything. So I think Georgia's in a really good spot for both of them. And honestly, I know he's not on our official visitor list, but I was told this morning the 5-star defensive lineman Elijah Griffin is expected in-house this weekend at Georgia on an unofficial visit. So that would be massive. We reported that this morning at Dogs 247. So huge weekend. You got 5-star linebacker Zayden Walker, who's looking at Georgia, South Carolina, Penn State, and Miami. You got top 100 wide receiver Talon Taylor. I know you're going to go in on him. You saw him multiple times, I believe, recently this offseason. I'm a fan. You got top 150 wide receiver Travis Smith Jr. I literally could go on, and I will. But top 150 O-line Nick Brooks, top 247 O-lineman Juan Gaston, and then 4-star cornerback Chris Ewald Jr., and then a guy that I'm really, really high on that I think, no disrespect, Andrew Ivins, because I think you're the best in the business. 3-star offensive lineman Michael Carroll, I think, is one of the most talented offensive linemen in the country, and they are in a really good spot along with Bama, Michigan, and Penn State.
I just look at the visitors list and I'm like, this is Georgia's bread and butter.
Crazy.
Big, massive offensive linemen and Juan Gatson, Nick Brooks. I mean, those are
Yep.
two of the largest when it comes to the measurables, and then an emphasis when it comes to the pass rushers. We know Zayden Walker, Kirby Smart has personally sunk his teeth into that recruitment. I want to ask you, Tom, Isaiah Gibson, Justice Terry, they're not a package deal, are they?
I've never heard that. And
Okay.
I don't think Anna Adams, who does a phenomenal job in the Southeast, I don't think she's ever reported that early either. So all of those independent recruitments, I just think that Georgia in the end is going to be tough to beat.
Which one do you think Georgia has a better chance with, or is it kind of even?
Honestly, I see them both flipping. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say either one because like Justice Terry is still looking at Florida State as well, so he's gonna give them a peek. They have an opportunity. Isaiah Gibson would probably be the one I'm giving the edge to, but again, Auburn, Florida, Ohio State, all in play, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and then one more guy I want to bring up, Kevin Wynn, top 247 defensive lineman, rare body type in this class. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Nas Johnson, who Georgia flipped from Florida last cycle. In-state product. Southern part of the state. I think it's Georgia. And then you didn't even have on here my guy, Laganza Hayward.
I was told this morning that I didn't have him on there because I don't know for sure if he's going to make it. So,
Okay.
Yeah, that's why. But I mentioned it before, but I was curious. Could you share with everybody, like after seeing him in person, Talon Taylor, just kind of your takeaways, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Georgia, right, I mean, the wide receiver position, high school recruiting wise, and I know this is going to sound weird after they had Ladd McConkey drafted, but it's left some to be desired in terms of player development. And look at their current 2D, a lot of transfers at that receiver position. To me, Talon Taylor, young for the grade, right? Checks a lot of boxes off for me. And then that in-person evaluation, seeing him make those explosive dynamic cuts. And then you think about potentially pairing him in a more pro-style offense, right? That's going to set up the pass with the run, win at the line of scrimmage. I think he's a guy that can be a difference maker on the outside. I know Georgia's really, really high on him. A ton of other programs are as well. Ohio State, Notre Dame, I don't know where else he's going to visit. You would know better than me, but him and Travis Smith, who's also going to visit, another top 247 receiver. Like, I think they fit what Georgia wants to do at that position. And both of them got developmental upside. So this just looks like the core of what Georgia wants to make the recruiting class. And then talk about the commits coming in. Darren Akinabong, one of our favorite defensive linemen, high upside guy. Ryan Montgomery, the quarterback, is going to be there.
Ryan Montgomery, man.
Yeah. Elias Williams as well. I think there's a reason Georgia has all these guys coming in the first weekend.
Huge. They're going to do a great job recruiting Ryan Montgomery. Every time I'm looking at Twitter, he's on there recruiting somebody to Athens. So he's a big win. And I already said it, but love Talon Taylor. I think he's a priority number one for James Coley, Ryan Montgomery, Kirby Smart. I like their chances.
From Georgia to Alabama, number 9 right now in the recruiting class rankings, Kalen DeBoer. Like with Jetfish, took him a little bit to find his bearings there. But, Tom, I look at this expected visitors list for the Crimson Tide, and I'll be honest, this is the first time where I've been like, oh, okay, this is the Alabama recruiting we saw of old. 5-star offensive tackle Ty Haywood expected. Keelan Russell, who's a much discussed prospect on this show, SMU quarterback commit, he's expected. And then Andrew Alesh, the tight end. And you got a bunch of other names here. Take me inside Alabama's weekend.
Ty Haywood doesn't get much bigger than that, man. Alabama very much in play. You got Florida State, Oklahoma, and then a bunch of Texas schools all battling it out. Andrew Alesh, top 100 tight end. Nice ranking by you guys. Love this kid. Florida battling Michigan, Ole Miss. I think Penn State's also in play, pushing alongside Alabama. Keelan Russell is a guy that obviously you guys have talked a bunch about, but couldn't be higher on him. That would be, I know Notre Dame fans were sending me texts this morning saying, oh, Keelan Russell's visiting Alabama. Man, that'd be a huge flip because they're obviously focused on Alabama no longer being in contention for Deuce Knight. So getting in play there. But again, a lot of optimism at SMU. They feel like they can keep him on the commitment list. So that would be huge. But kind of like an underrated guy that's not underrated ranking wise, but a guy maybe not on the top of the list here for official visitors. I like Marcus Harris a lot, top 247 wide receiver. Saw him, I believe, in Florida at one of the battle events. A lot to like there. And when you look at schools in play. You got Georgia, Bama, Oregon, Tennessee, Texas, all pushing hard for him. So this group, alongside Todd Robinson, a top 247 running back DB, he's actually being recruited by Bama, Georgia, both to be playing in the secondary somewhere. So lots to like with him. And then wrap it up with 3-star defensive lineman Charles House, who's considering Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee. So big weekend. And like you said, this gives vibes of the Nick Saban Alabama recruiting weekends.
All right. Where do things stand with Keelan Russell? I know Alabama was in there, but I'll be honest, when I opened up the rundown, didn't know that they were getting an official visit. You said it, SMU feels optimistic on Keelan Russell, but Ole Miss has been linked to him. Florida's been linked to him. Who do you think has the best chance of flipping him right now from the Mustangs?
I think Alabama has a lot to offer. I think that they're in a spot that's probably better positioned than Florida right now, but I think it's too early to really make a final projection at this point for down the road. But everybody I talked to connected with SMU feels like, yeah, they're nervous, but they definitely think that they have enough on the table that will make him happy, and they set him up depth chart wise and success to keep him locked in. But there's a lot of schools across the country still pushing for him. It wouldn't shock me either if he decided to set 1 or 2 official visits that we haven't talked about yet. So Florida's optimistic, cautiously optimistic. Alabama, this is going to be a big weekend. This is one to watch. There's a lot to like, and if you're a Crimson Tide coaching staff or fan, there's a lot to like here with what you're going to lay out for Keelan Russell. Does
Russell have anything else set up? Any other officials?
I thought it was just Florida, Bama, and SMU right now, but I mean that's.
And he's already been to Ole Miss.
Oh yeah, and Ole Miss as well. Yeah, they've still been in play. So other than that, again, it wouldn't shock me as long as he runs this out. If he decides to wait, before he drops that tweet, completely shut down, locked in, whatever, schools are going to be calling constantly, and rightfully so.
Andrew Olesh. Think about him.
You saw him recently, right?
Yeah, I saw him at the All-22 up in State College, which fueled his ranking. Hey, someone else asked him about Michigan fans. I think you got to watch Michigan for Andrew Olesh. Not my lane, just based on what I heard there in the stands. I think they're after him. But Caleb Odoms is someone that Alabama took last year, kind of that hybrid tight end, outside receiver. You read the spring practice reports. I think they're playing him more as a receiver, but him and Andrew Olesh would give you, in theory, some mismatches to work with, some different personnel. Think about Kalen DeBoer and his offense. They're going to try to air it out. So I would like that potential pairing, and then you could have Keelan Russell throwing them the football. From Alabama, let's go to USC. You said it. You don't have a ton of fans. You are don't shoot the messenger. Is that what I should say for you?
Yeah.
Number 4 ranked recruiting class right now. It's fine, Tom, because there was a time when I said, what is going on with USC recruiting? Because they were ranked behind Florida Atlantic and all these other programs. And then a week later, multiple 5 stars committed, and now they're sitting number 4 in the rankings. Jonah Williams is going to be in LA this weekend on his official visit. Some receivers we like. Donovan Olabode, major riser in the top 247. CJ Wiley, Nathaniel Owusu Boateng, linebacker. You got Nick Townsend, who I just recently dug into, kind of a freak athlete. Lincoln Riley, what are they going to do this weekend on the recruiting trail?
By the way, I was fired up to see Donovan Olubode's new ranking at 24/7. Big fan of him, and I mean, I think you wrote it, but that kid's been a touchdown machine every time I've seen him. It's unbelievable. Huge weekend for USC. Olubode's on campus, still battling Missouri and Florida, Oregon, and a couple others, Washington as well. But Jonah Williams is really the prize, 5-star linebacker. It's going to be a tough pull, but this is a guy that could get drafted for the major leagues. Will one day play professionally, in my opinion, whatever he wants, whether it is baseball or football. USC battling LSU, Oklahoma, multiple Texas schools, Oregon, and Ohio State. You got Nathaniel Owusu Boateng. Right now, my best guess would be somewhere in the Midwest, like a Notre Dame, Ohio State, or Michigan, but USC is very, very much in play. You already mentioned Nick Townsend, who's USC's battling Bama, Texas, and a few others. CJ Wiley, top 247 wide receiver that I like a ton. Battling, USC in play along with Auburn and Florida State, Georgia, a few others. Amalai Kulani Uvala. I need Blair Angulo for that pronunciation. Hopefully I didn't butcher it. But top 247 offensive linemen from out west. USC in play along with Michigan, Nebraska. I believe you already took that official visit, and then Ole Miss. And then just to wrap it up, Tanu Hines, who's Nick Towns' teammate, 4-star receiver looking at Notre Dame, USC, Baylor, and Texas. And then lastly, Aaron Dunn, top 150 offensive lineman looking at USC, Oregon, UCLA, Utah, and BYU. So huge weekend, a lot to like. The staff obviously doing a really good job on the recruiting trail. Just got to keep some of these guys like Isaiah Gibson, Justice Terry, and obviously everybody knows Julian Lewis is looking around. So if they could somehow keep all those and add a few of these guys, I mean, massive, massive class on both sides of the ball, especially defense.
2 questions. Anyone on commit watch for USC? Follow up.
Well, actually, I will. I will say Tanu Hines, and I have a crystal ball for him to Notre Dame right now. That was essentially done until it wasn't. So that's kind of intriguing. What he told me months ago that he liked USC because of the location, West Coast, Los Angeles. He's got a social media presence that he's kind of excited about, and he thinks that he could take him. I think it's the life off the football field that's very intriguing about USC, and obviously they do all the right things as a receiver if he were to play for the Trojans. So that's one to watch. And maybe Aaron Dunn, but the offensive lineman, top 150 guy, but he's got plenty of official visits still to take. Tanu Hines does as well. So all these guys committing quickly after one visit, it's tough to see that happening in this era of recruiting.
Second question, Jonah Williams. We've discussed him, 5-star player, could just play baseball, could be drafted very high. Wasn't too long ago, USC signed another kind of one of these dual sport athletes in Deuce Robinson. I just looked it up. Deuce Robinson played in 4 games as a freshman, but they're allowing him to play baseball at USC. Do you think that helps the Trojans with Jonah Williams? Like, you will legitimately be able to play baseball?
It's clearly not all talk when they say that. So it's absolutely going to help. And Jonah Williams and Deuce Robinson is a great baseball player as well. Jonah Williams, just from everything that Mike Roach was initially reporting and talking to people, he's next level when it comes to the baseball diamond. So very curious to see how his recruitment plays out. If he gets drafted as high as a lot of people project, it's tough to see him passing on all that money in the MLB draft. But yeah, it's clearly that would be a massive 2-sport win for USC.
Juju Marks, another, I think, expected weekend visitor, or he's an interesting kind of evaluation. Defensive lineman, bills himself as an offensive tackle there out of Kansas. I believe he's set to announce on June 30th. But if you think about the Trojans moving into the Big Ten line of scrimmage league, that would be certainly a big one. Tom, we're through 5. We got the last one on here, and there are multiple big official visit weekends around the country, but you wanted to highlight 6 of these. We're going to finish with Miami, class ranked right now, number 29 overall. Mario Cristobal, he eats, breathes, sleeps recruiting. We saw what they were able to do in the transfer portal in that spring window, has set them up certainly to make some noise this fall. Big visitor weekend for them. What stands out to me, not a lot of South Florida kids on there.
You're absolutely right. I don't know if it makes sense or it's something they're going to plan for the 2nd or 3rd week in June, but they got a really, really good group coming in this weekend, headlined by top 150 cornerback Jabari Antoine, LSU's prized commitment, a guy that I absolutely love. Miami, Florida State, LSU in play in that one. You got top 100 edge Zion Grady, who some believe could land at Miami. This is a huge weekend for him. So they got to push all the right buttons because Auburn, Florida State, Georgia, Ohio State, who just recently had him on campus, they're all very much in contention. I shouldn't leave out Tennessee as well. They're also in play. So, and then right there in Alabama, you got top 100 linebacker Eric Winters coming to town. Some see him as a linebacker, some see him as a safety. Either way, terrific football player. Miami's battling Auburn, Florida, Georgia, and a few others. And then you got top 150 edge Javion Campbell, who's been a stock-up guy for the last few months. A lot to like there. Bama, Auburn, Georgia, Miami, some Midwest schools in play. And then just kind of wrap it up, you got a couple 3-stars. You got wide receiver Tyler Williams, running back Byron Lewis, and running back Shakai Mills-Knight, all visiting Miami, all guys that Miami loves, pushing for. We'll see how it shakes out. But when you're really looking at the top of the board with Antoine Grady and Winters, this is a huge, huge weekend for Miami, because I'm not saying that like they have to get them silently committed behind the scenes. But you need to move to that pole position earlier rather than later, because as we move on over the next couple of weeks, Just there's too much you can't control if you're Miami. So very curious to see the buzz coming out of Coral Gables after this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Jabori and Antoine, they were in it on they've been in it on a few different corners for them. Look, I kind of love that play going into Louisiana. They have done that with this new staff, and I think it's going to pay off in terms of, I think those Louisiana kids, don't have as much exposure. I think they have a chip on their shoulder. I think they're ready to play, ready to go right now. And you have seen Miami continue to go back into the Bayou and look for talent. The two that jump out to me, Tom, those defensive linemen, Javion Campbell, Hayden Lowe, I mean, they are measurable gods, what you are looking for. And then you think about, okay, we have Jason Taylor, gold jacket there, someone that can develop defensive linemen. Like, those are the two that I think Miami needs to get. More specifically so, I think it's a down year, not only in South Florida, but just across the Sunshine State when it comes to these lanky pass rushers. So you had to go outside of state borders. Those two guys, Javion Campbell in Kentucky, Hayden Lowe all the way out in California, make a ton of sense for me. And they would, like you said, I don't know if it unlocks some things, but you gotta figure out where you are with those two. Hopefully, get some good news, and that allows you to kind of keep moving on with your board.
That'd be huge. I should say, like, the others may be ranked higher when I'm talking about Antoine, Grady, and Winters, but the more you look at it, you're absolutely right. Campbell and Lowe would be huge victories for Miami, but there's a lot of stiff competition there. There's a lot of visits still to take. Campbell's so new to the process over the last 6 months that he's probably just going crazy in excitement, really, with so many schools like Miami and Alabama and Auburn and Georgia and Kentucky and Ohio State, and I could continue going, but they're all pushing for him. They all want him. This is all new to him, so I don't see him going to Miami, falling in love and committing right away. But you got to leave as the leader. You got to leave as the team to beat. And then who knows? Maybe if he takes his time, comes back in the fall on his own dime, or whatever you want to call it in this day and era, this era in recruiting. But come back in the fall, check out a game at Miami, and maybe that's the key to getting it done.